ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Team Takeover interviews. My name is Ross, aka Takeover Sports, and today I'm joined by the DB coach at Winston-Salem State University, Coach Corey Stewart. Coach Stewart, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you taking some time out because, I know spring semester just started, recruiting's going on, signing day is February? I know early
Yeah,
signing day just happened, so it's a lot of moving and shaking, but I appreciate you kind of hopping on.
no problem.
Thank you. All right, cool. Before we kind of talk about the team now, I do kind of want to get into a little bit of background about you because not only are you now a coach at Winston-Salem State, but you also played. Kind of how was those experiences while you were playing and kind of what made you decide to get into coaching after you graduated?
Yeah, so after high school, I attended Winston State University. Head coach was Coach Blunt at the time.
Hmm.
Um, when I came into Winston State, it was a Division II CIAA, which is where it is now. And then we ended up transitioning to the MEAC, Division One play. And
Hmm.
so I think the last 3 years that I was there, we were transitioning to the MEAC. So our schedule was a MEAC schedule. And so, that was different because, even though we were transitioned to the MEAC, we weren't eligible for any type of postseason play or
Right.
anything like that. So really we was playing for the love of the game. And then the travel is obviously different in the MEAC than it is in the CIAA. CIAA is a lot more regional versus the MEAC. We got to go different in Florida and
Right.
Delaware and different things. So the travel was just different as well. But a lot of good experiences being able to be at Winston State during that time.
Hmm. Okay. I was gonna say for anybody that doesn't really know what the MEAC is, can you kind of let them know some of the teams that were in there at the time and kind of go from
Yeah.
there?
So when we was in the CIAA, biggest rival was in the North Carolina Central.
Hmm.
Normally it came down to us or them as far as who was going to go to the CIAA tournament, and then we both decided at the same time to make that transition. I think it was like a year later than us.
Right.
Um, so then when we transitioned to the MEAC, we were able um, to revitalize some old rivalries that had been in the old CIAA. So we was able to play A&T again, Hampton. So the MEAC at that time had Hampton, had Central, had Florida A&M, had Bethune-Cookman, Delaware State, Howard. So just a whole new crop for our fans, really. Some old faces and
Yeah.
some new faces as far as who we were able to play during that. I think it was like a 4-year transition that we were in.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I was just gonna, wondering because some people listen to it, they don't know really deep into HBCU colleges and the divisions and stuff like that. So kind of just some clarity type of stuff.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. What kind of made you decide to go into coaching once you were finished playing though?
The love of the game, in all honesty, it's one of those things where I've always loved football.
Hmm.
Um, And so, when I got done with it, I was like, well, what can I do to kind of keep me around the game? My major was in mass communication. So my dream was always to become a sports broadcaster.
Mm.
And so that didn't really, I didn't go in that direction. God didn't take me that way.
Hmm.
But he did allow me to still be a part of sports and a part of the game. And so once I graduated, I had a coach, my defense coordinator, Coach Mike Ketchum. He said, well, hey, you come on back and you can help me with the defense. And so I
Okay.
did that for 2 years at Winston-Salem State after I finished graduating. At that time, I was substitute teaching and working at Sheets.
Hmm.
Um, and so I did that as a part-time or as a GA. And then after they had a transition at Winston State, I ended up going back to my old alma mater, my old high school at Parkland High School with Coach Bell. Coach Bell brought me onto his staff at Parkland. I was there for maybe 4 years or so. And then
Mhm.
I did 1 year at Glenn High School in Winston-Salem, and did it, I believe 5 years at North Forsyth in Winston-Salem. And then one of the guys that I played with actually at Winston State, Coach Marvin Bohannon, he was at Winston State at the time, and he said, "Hey, I think you can come over and you can work with the DBs a little bit." So that's how I ended up coming over to Winston State.
Okay. See, I was gonna ask you if there were any coaches, but it sounds like there were a lot of coaches that kinda help you get your career kinda going and things like that, so that's
Yeah,
always a
I don't.
plus.
Yeah, I don't think you can get into this business without knowing people. I think this is a people business.
Mhm.
You know, whether you're dealing with parents, whether you're dealing with recruits, whether you're dealing with your own kids that you're currently coaching,
Right.
or whether you're dealing with other coaches, it's a people business, and obviously our business has transitions at times. And so, you know, it's good for you to know different people, especially when you're trying to find your next opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I did go online to kinda do a little bit of background research, and it also said video assistant. So if you can kinda tell us what that entails and what that hat looks like for you as well as being the assistant DB coach.
Yeah. So you know, video coordinator or video assistant. I'm in charge of um making sure that the film is up for
Mm,
practices,
okay.
making sure that you know game footage is up, that we're cutting the film up the way that the other coaches want,
Right.
and just making sure that the film is right.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to touch on it a little bit because I didn't wanna leave any stone, unturned.
I
So,
got you.
just wanted to make sure that was straight. So, I do kinda wanna talk about the season that just happened. Uh, Interesting season, to kinda say the least. Now, it said 4-6, but you lost 4 games by 1 possession. So, I mean, it really could have even been, what, 8-2?
Yeah, I think realistically, looking at the season, there was only one game that kind of got out of reach,
Mhm.
which was the first game at North Carolina Central.
Mm.
Um, we went in there very confident in our ability, but you know, playing a freshman QB first start in a college game, um, had his difficulties defensively. We were trying to see where some guys fit in at, um, you know, because you can kind of try to see all you want during preseason where guys fit at, but it's a whole totally different thing when you get on a Saturday
Right.
and they got somebody else across from them. So you know, it's about making adjustments. But you know, as far as looking at the season as a whole, you know, 4 games by a total of 15 points. Um, and I think we went into the last game, um, uh, which are 5 games with a total of 15 points, something like that. With the last game being 6 points, so that kind of
Mhm.
tells you how close the other games were. You know, with us, you know, losing to Fayetteville State at the end, we lost it in overtime, so that's where the
Yeah.
6 points come in.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you can look at the record and say, well, man, they didn't do as well. But then when you really take a look at it, you realize that Livingstone, we lost last second field goal. Lincoln last second touchdown. Fayetteville State overtime. Um, and Johnson C. Smith, I believe last second or not our last drive,
Right.
touchdown, I believe it was. So
Yeah. No, I was gonna say all those games when you kinda looked at it and you kinda just broke down the loss, you was like, "Okay, they weren't blowouts." Like, none of the games were super out of reach. They were all very competitive games. So,
mhm.
I was just kinda looking at it like, "Okay, there are some lessons here that could be taught, through these losses. That way next season when they come back, those losses can be flipped into wins, and it'll be a very good season for you guys."
Yeah, that's our thinking right now going into the off season and heading into the new season. We bring almost the entire team back. Um uh I think we had a total of like 5 seniors.
Mhm.
Um and only 3 of them have exhausted their eligibility.
Oh, wow.
So so yeah, so we definitely feel like we're in a good space. We're in a
Hmm.
and we're in a results oriented business. So the results have to come.
Right.
But looking at last year, we feel confident in what we were doing and the strides that we were making. Now it's about finishing. That has to be the goal this year, is finish.
Yeah. I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna say you guys only had what, I think, two seniors graduate from your DB room. So kind of bringing in those. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my DB room, actually everybody comes back.
Oh.
Yeah, the previous year we had 2 that
Hmm.
graduated.
Oh, wow.
So this group has been starting for the last 3 years for the most part.
Hmm.
Um and so we're going to be very senior oriented in the back end this year. And then last year, due to some injuries, we actually played a freshman at corner
Hmm.
towards the back end of the season. I think he got his first start against it's either Lincoln or Shaw. Um, and so yeah, so he's got confidence now, and then the guys that were getting back from injury, they obviously are a confident group. And
Yeah.
so it's just about us all putting it together and making sure that now that we've been around each other for a couple of years, that
Hmm.
we know what each one of us can do, and
Yeah.
now we play with confidence and play fast.
Yeah. Fast and aggressive. You know. I was gonna ask you. I was gonna say, who are some guys that you were kind of expecting to step up going into? I guess now that I know they're all coming back, going into that final year, who are some guys that's really on your eye and on your radar to make an improvement?
Yeah, so one of the first names that come to mind is Justin Fleming, 6'2", 6'3", safety type.
Hmm.
Um, he made a all conference this year, all CIAA conference member. Um, he's a hard worker, yes sir, no sir type of kid. Um, Obviously has the size, the speed, understands the game very well. Can play all 3 of the safety spots that we have
Hmm.
on defense. Another guy, Jalen Gillette, um, uh, a kid from Charlotte, once also a senior. Um, he's probably uh, his skill set, even though he's not the tallest corner, his skill set comes in with his confidence,
Right.
and then his ability to change direction. He's just a flat out baller when he's on.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he got a little nicked up, a little injured last year. So yeah, so he once he came back, he had to wear a brace, and he just wasn't as comfortable as he normally would. But we expect him to be back to his true form
Right.
going into next season. We also got Dante Bolding, who came to us. He was the only transfer of the group that came to us from a different school, and
Hmm.
he made an immediate impact last year, and we expect him to make an immediate impact this year. Tough kid, likes to hit you. And so he's been a great addition to our room. Um, he's getting his master's, straight A kid. Justin Fleming, A's and B's, Dean's List, Gillette, Dean's List as well. So we prioritize academics.
Hmm.
I want kids that can think back there, as well as
Right.
being athletically gifted. So those are 3 names. We also have Terrell Chance, who's another senior. Got some playing time and some starts last year.
Hmm.
Once he got hurt, the freshman Carlos Craig was able to come in. Carlos is about 6'3"
Oh,
on the
wow.
outside, from Fayetteville. So we expecting him to mature and grow, and really we Sincere Brown as well, another senior, um, that we expect big things from. So it's going to be a fight um, for reps,
Hmm.
and that's what we want. We want them to not be comfortable, for them to understand that there are people behind them that are trying to play and um, that can possibly try to take some of those starting reps.
Right.
But the great thing of it is about having a deep room, and is that those guys can also help out on special teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like a really deep room. And after January, the room got a little bit deeper because you guys signed 17 new players, but really the main focus for this, conversation is you signed 3 new DBs. So how do you think those guys are gonna come in and kind of looking forward to the future? How do you think that being around all of these senior core members of the group and then the freshmen that played last year, how do you think that's gonna help impact them going into
Well,
their sophomore, junior, senior year?
the thing about it is about the kid setting culture.
Mhm.
Because what ends up happening is I can't be around all the time,
Right.
but they're going to be around you, or and so I tell my guys it's important for y'all to set the leadership role and the standard. So that's why I brought up Dante going for his masters, or Flim and Gillette being dean's list kids, because that's setting the standard for what we expect when you come into the DB room. We expect you to go to class. We expect you to do well in class. We expect you to watch film. We expect you. So if they're setting the standard, it doesn't always have to come from me. And I think those are the best rooms. So the guys that are coming in, transfers or freshmen, coming in this year, they're already going to see that there's an expectation that has to be met if you want to get on the field and be successful on the field. And so I just expect I just expect those guys to come in and put in the work like we do. That's expected in our room. And I'm just excited to see what they bring to the table. One of the things that we talked about, um, and kind of thinking of what we want to do in kind of that mid-year, we just want to get more depth. Like, yeah, we have depth, but
Mhm.
we saw what happens when, like at one point I had 3 corners that were hurt. And so no matter how much depth you have, eventually,
You can always have
y
more.
yeah, you can always have more, because, um, you know, eh, if you go into your third and fourth guys on the depth chart, no matter how good you can be Alabama. Um, there's a reason at certain points that those guys are on the depth chart where they are. So
Right. Right. So, yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like, you bought in a lot of depth. Early signing window, I know that the national signing window is February, so are there more plans to bring in more depth going into that signing window, or are you guys planning on saying you already have your class set up?
no, we don't have our class. We actually haven't offered a ton of kids yet. Um, so at this level, the
Mhm.
D2 Black College level, our resources are limited.
Right.
We only have 4 full-time coaches on staff. I'm not one of them. I'm actually part-time.
Mhm.
And so trying to have 4 full-time coaches recruit the entire state of North Carolina can be very difficult. We have to be very strategic in how we go about doing that, because North Carolina has 100 counties.
Right.
So there's no telling how many cities, how many schools
Yeah.
there are, in Winston-Salem alone, where we're at. Winston-Salem, North Carolina, there's I think like 11 or 12 high schools.
Mhm.
Um, so that's just in one city, not to mention all the other cities and counties
Mhm.
that we have. We try to break it up as best we can amongst the 4 coaches, full time, and then the part time coaches that we do have. But it does become difficult, and then you get different coaches from different high schools say, "Well, we ain't seen with Sam State, or we ain't." And I don't. And sometimes I just don't think that they understand that you have 4 full time coaches trying to recruit an entire state,
Right.
and it's just not feasible to for everybody to get everywhere and see every kid.
Mhm.
So we rely a lot on Twitter. We rely a lot on showcases. We'll go to a showcase, see what kids are there, and that's a way for us to get our brand out and look at these kids.
Right.
If we're not able to necessarily get to their school and see them in person. So I say all that to say we haven't actually. We're still doing visits. We got a visit tomorrow, and then we got one more visit, obviously, before signing day.
Mhm.
And then we our head coach, Coach Massey's motto is kind of a 70-30 rule. So we want to try to get 70% high school and then
Mhm.
30% transfers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a good way to do it that way. You have them for all of the years that they're gonna be here, depending on how long they're gonna be, probably, like,
Hopefully.
hey, fingers crossed, recruiting portal, transfer portal is a whole different conversation. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed that they stay for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up Twitter and you brought up the showcases. The last question I did want to ask you before we got out of here was, did you have any advice for the kids, be it 2024 or beyond, for recruiting? That way they can get more coaches' eyes on them.
Um, I think it's about understanding that you're a business within yourself.
Mm,
And so when I go to your Twitter, I expect to see it as a business mindset.
right.
So I expect to see if you know your phone number. If you don't want your phone number out there, I expect to see your email address.
Hmm.
Um, expect to see your GPA. Expect to see what position you play. I
Yeah.
expect to see your high school. I expect to see your huddle linked in your Twitter page.
Hmm.
It's one of those things where um I'm sure just like every other college coach in America, I'm getting 20, 30 messages a day.
Hmm.
And so if I go to your page and I'm having a look and search and try to find the information that I need, then it's just easier to go to the next kid and see um, what he has to offer. So I would say, make sure that your Twitter is your business page.
Right.
So that way, when I come to see your page, I can find information very easily and readily available. I would also say, um, those showcases are a nice thing because you get multiple coaches
Hmm.
um, at those showcases, and you're getting information. Different showcases do different things. Some of them do 40s and different things, so you're able to get testing there.
Right.
And you're able to see how they move. For me, when they're doing the one-on-ones, I want to see how you compete. Technique is technique. Some people get taught different techniques at the DB position. Some people might not get taught as well as some others, but I just want to see you compete, because when you
Hmm.
come to me, I'm going to teach you the way that we do things anyway,
Right.
as far as from a technique standpoint. Um, so I would just say, um, the Twitter page, the showcases, and patience, and also being uh the kids that continuously hit me up
Hmm.
might feel like they're being that they're being
To kind
annoying,
of, okay.
but they're not, because you're keeping me you're keeping yourself on my radar.
Right.
Because of those 30 messages that I get, you send me a message and then I get another 20. Well, your message has been put down. So even
Hmm.
if I go and look at your stuff, I might forget about it 3 weeks later. But if you hit me back and say, "Hey, coach, how's it going? Just wanted to check back in," that just keeps you on my radar.
Hmm.
So it's really about, once again, that business aspect of promoting yourself.
Right.
So you got to promote yourself, and then grades. I know that they hear it all the time, but it's very important that their grades are where they need to be.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if I can't get you in school, I can't get you in school, no matter how great of an athlete you are.
Yeah.
Um, And so that's also another thing that the public sometimes doesn't see. They'll say, well, why is this kid not getting recruited, or why is that kid not getting recruited, or they'll come to us and say, well, I think this kid could have helped y'all. Well, yeah, he could have, but what you didn't see is that GPA that was at 2.1.
Right.
And so you got to have the credentials, you got to have the grades in order to get into college.
Hmm.
um and then go from there. So that's kind of the advice I would give to the recruiting classes. And then the patience part just comes into play because of the way the transfer portal is set up. Sometimes you got to kind of be patient because the opportunities that might have been there for some high school kids in previous years before the portal, it's not necessarily saying that they're not there. They're just they're not coming as quickly as they would have if there was no portal.
Right. Right. So, okay, that's a lot you just kind of threw out there. I'm gonna definitely use some of that advice. Tell some of the people that I do work with some of that advice. That way, that they are ready to use it, apply it, and then they can go on to the next chapter.
Yeah,
So, okay, cool. I appreciate you hopping on, man. I know that I know that you're busy. So I appreciate the time that you gave, and thank you for talking. I look forward to talking to you maybe later on.
sure, that's great, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I love me being a mass comm major.
Hmm.
I love platforms like this. I would have never thought when I graduated in '08 that these type of platforms would have been available for people. Um, that you don't have to go to a news station, or you don't have to go the traditional route of being a reporter.
Right.
That now you can have your own platform and talk on your own platform. So I think that's a great thing, and anytime that I can be a part of this,
Hmm.
of people owning their own media and their own space, I'm always ecstatic to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
All right, man, you take it easy.
Hey, you too, man. I appreciate you.